I'm going to show you how to make your own racetracks using the racetrack assets from the Hoverbike build. So first of all, go to the Hoverbike racetrack and you'll see this present, which contains assets which you'll use to build your own track. So click on that. That'll take you to a marketplace entry which you can buy. And then go somewhere where you want to build. So I'm going to go to my home build. Hit B to go into build mode. And find the palette of assets that you bought. So here we have racetrack kit. So now, and these are all the script components you're going to need to make your own track. So the first thing you need to do though is create a key. So all these assets are going to communicate through a database key and you'll need to make your own, but it's really easy. Go to create, key, and just name it. So I'm going to call it racetrack key. And we're going to use this to configure these assets so they can talk to each other. So put down starting line, finish line, a race controller. This is the thing that's going to configure how everything works. I'm going to turn that so it's facing us. You can set up some scoreboards for high scores. And now all these things, oh, and starting positions. Don't forget starting positions. So as many positions as you want in your race, you put down starting positions. This will be a one-person race. And now all these things that I've set up need to be configured with my key. So select the object, go to Object, Customize, and then in the place where it says key, just select the key you just made. Racetrack key. The scoreboards also need to be configured with racetrack key. The race controller itself needs to use the racetrack key. And the finish line needs to use the racetrack key. And again, that's so they can communicate with each other. And so once you've done that, if you click on the starting line, it should give you diagnostic information about your race. So you can see it's in state waiting for players, so it's waiting, a race is ready to start. You have 0 waypoints set. I'll talk about that in a minute. You have 1 starting position, which is this guy here, and it's found the finish line. So you can see that all these components are successfully connecting together. If I click on the scoreboard, you'll see no one has scored yet in my race, which is true, and there are no high scores yet. So at this point, this race is ready to play. So if I click on the starting position, my race will start. And it's a very, very short race. I'm just racing straight towards the finish line. And I've won. If I click on the high scores, you'll see that I've been recorded. Everything is successfully working together. And the race is reset, so I can play again. So that's the basic race setup. It's as simple as that. You make a start line, a finish line, a race controller, and configure them with the same key, and you're good to go. But what if you want to make sure people follow a particular path? Then you're going to use checkpoints. So if I go back into my palette and I put down a checkpoint, I want to make sure that everyone goes through this point. Again, this is going to have to be configured with the race key. Modify that, use the racetrack key. Now what's going to happen is that if I start my race and just go straight to the finish line without going through the waypoint, it's going to think that I tried to cheat. Yes, it says you tried to do something sneaky, your race is invalid, and if I click on the scores, it says that I was disqualified. What that means is that I need to go through that point to successfully have completed the race. So I'm going to go through those 2 red buoys and then through the finish line. And it thinks that I successfully completed it now. And if I look at the scores, it's going to see that I completed the race. So that's how you make long winding racetracks and make sure that the player actually completes them. Because a lot of the racetrack components operate over collision volumes, it's useful to be able to draw the collision. So to do that, you say /draw collision 1, and that shows you the collision volumes over which everything is operating. So you can see this whole race operates in this big sphere here. That's around the race controller. This is the plane you need to break through to go through the checkpoint. That's the finish line. If you want to see what is actually being calculated in your race, how the race is actually telling whether you went through the finish line or you went through the waypoint, turn on draw collision and you can look at things. The other thing is that the race volume is actually pretty small to begin with. It's only a 100-meter radius sphere. And your race is probably going to go outside of that. And so you can change that to make your race volume bigger by going into build mode, clicking on the race controller, and then going to Modify, tab of the object, going to Collision Shapes, and here the radius is 100. You probably want to bump that up to something like 1,000. It doesn't really matter. It should cover the whole area in which your race is going to operate. Because if anybody goes outside of that radius that you can see when you show draw collision, that big sphere, they're going to be disqualified. It doesn't really matter if it's really big. So go ahead and set that to 1,000, and then it'll be so big you won't even be able to see it, and that's fine. That just means that anywhere in the zone your race is going to work. And that's the last thing to note, and then you can turn off draw collision once you've seen that everything is to your liking. And that's pretty much all there is to creating your own racetracks, so have fun!